Hello, I'm Kathleen Hall of CIO Marketing Services. Legacy modernisation is an ongoing process that's long been on the agenda of CIOs. However, the onset of AI deployments is bringing these initiatives into sharp focus, as system modernisations are crucial to scale innovation. Yet at the same time, the arrival of AI is also an opportunity to radically change the narrative of how IT leaders address the pain points of legacy modernisation. Joining me today to discuss this topic, I have two guests: Mike Turner, Global Leader in the Software and Platform Engineering Service line at Cognizant, and Yugal Joshi, Partner at IT Services at Everest Group. Welcome both. Would you like to say a few words to introduce yourselves? Mike, did you want to start?
Thanks, Kat. So I work at Cognizant and I look after our offerings in the software and platform engineering space.
I'm Yugal Joshi, partner with Everest Group, and I lead our engineering and technology practice.
Fantastic. Thank you both for being here. So Yugal, in what way are legacy systems hindering innovation, and how can AI help address some of these historic challenges?
So I think the challenges of modernization and legacy them not being up to the pace of the world have been very well documented over a period of time. The way they just do not change fast, they do not run fast. Businesses want to do so many different things and want to introduce so many different technologies to run better, to serve their clients. But somehow legacy systems end up pulling them down in some way or the other. And it's just not about them not working as fast as the company wants, but also the amount of money they need just to be run. What is called keep the lights on type of work. That is very high. So they end up sucking out a lot of innovation funding that a company would normally want to be funded into growth initiatives, let's say. And then over a period of time, something which has come up is the cyber posture these legacy systems have exposed their companies. I think that has increased a lot in the recent past. And I do see that as AI journey scales, legacy systems will become even more vulnerable to the cyber threat.
That's great. Thank you for setting the context there. So, Mike, how should enterprises approach modernisation, and what should they prioritise?
So I would say modernization is primarily a tool that can be used to simplify operations and accelerate change. A lot of the time, old systems build up complexity over time. They get more complicated. They reflect the requirements of yesterday rather than the requirements of tomorrow. And so with modernization as a tool for simplification, really the primary focus, we would say, would be to look at areas that are causing complexity and constraint today. So where is there risk attached to systems? Where are systems slowing down change? Where is a significant cost attached to systems? In terms of prioritization, what we typically see with clients, I would say, is a balanced prioritization between those two different areas. So firstly, looking at taking out complexity, taking out cost, also looking at innovation and reimagining experiences. Typically, blending both of those objectives together is a good way to have a balanced modernization.
Great, thank you. So what do businesses need to succeed with this phase of AI-enabled modernisation? And what's the fastest route to return on investment? Yugal, could I start with you?
So I guess this puzzle has been troubling a lot of our clients forever, and I think interestingly, AI to an extent makes it worse because AI is changing so many things at such a rapid pace that clients are finding hard to put their arms around. And the point that Mike earlier made about prioritization, I think it has become even more challenging now because clients have started to somehow believe that AI is a magic pill and they can do everything right away. But there are a lot of, I won't say hindrance, but the fundamentals do not change. The ROI models remain the same. What is my return on investment from this initiative, both on the technology side as well as on the business side? Whether I am using AI or not, I think that's besides the point. So that becomes important. Second is about, okay, the point Mike made, how do I start? Where do I prioritize it? I think that is important. And probably last but not the least is going back to the basics, and then speaking about, okay, why are we trying to do this in the first place? And what are we trying to achieve when it comes to modernization? Cost reduction is one thing, time to market is another thing, compliance and regulation could be another thing. So that of it, there are lot many moving parts for any of these in any of the companies going in this journey.
Great, thank you. Same question to you, Mike.
Yeah, so I think if we look at how technology is evolving, um, and the pace of change is increasing, I would say modernization is a core capability that technology functions need to build and need to maintain on an ongoing basis. It's interesting that actually when we look at modern applications that are a lot more modular and a lot more integrated, we find that they also need to be modernized, and they need to be modernized with much higher frequency than, let's say, a 50-year-old legacy core mainframe system. And so I think to be successful in modernization, businesses should really think about this as a portfolio of opportunities, and then should think about industrializing execution across that portfolio. So think about tooling and automation, think about factories, think about standard methods, think about how to balance systems that are being changed and migrated together with ongoing business operations, and really start to think about this as something that needs to be a capability built up over time for the long term, where initial activity can realize savings, which can then be used to fund that capability and accelerate those modernization um, initiatives over time. So this becomes something that's a kind of compounding investment, where we can start with some relatively small investments to find low-hanging fruit type opportunities, and then use the savings that you get from that to then scale up and accelerate efforts.
Great advice there, thank you. So, Yugal, do you have any examples of where modernisation of a legacy system has resulted in a direct business benefit?
So, there are multiple, but the key ask is to define business parameters well. So one is, in the processes where the impact of technology to, let's say, revenue growth is very clear, things become easier to link. And then last but not the least, in typical, let's say banks or even CPG firms and retail firms, where there's a good reliance on mainframe, and those systems run a lot of batch files, and many times those batch files are very error prone. So many of the clients say, okay, if I'm running a reconciliation batch process 1, batch process 2, if you can improve through modernization efficiency of these, that is good enough for me. So net of it, defining the business KPI that you want to achieve well is very critical in modernization.
Really good examples, thank you. Mike, could I get your insights on this as well, please?
Yeah, sure. So I think something that's happened over the sort of different generations of technology is that we've seen things get much nicer from a user interface perspective, much more flexible, much more dynamic, and much more personalized. I think, as Yugal was talking about, in an old mainframe environment, the process is completely fixed. It runs in a batch. It can take 2 days to complete a process. It can take 7 days to complete a process. You can't really scale the capacity of those systems. You can't really integrate with those systems. There's a lot of data that's trapped in those environments. They're not really personalized. So whilst they're very reliable and good at the job that they were designed to do, if you look at customer experience expectations today, users want to see something that's much more friendly, much more personalized to them. They expect things to be done instantly, and so those are the kind of areas that modernization can have a really significant impact. And I guess in the work we do, we would typically see, there are some modernizations that are focused on customer experience and revenue growth. There are some that are focused on reducing technology cost and technology complexity, and there are some that are around other areas of operational effectiveness in the business. So maybe to give a few examples of some of these that we've seen in real life. So we were working with a healthcare business looking at their member platform, and the problem that they had was multiple systems underneath this member app with different islands of data and siloed functionality. So as a user, what you would come in to use this app, it would feel very disjointed and very complex because you're kind of hopping from one area to another. So we worked with this business to reimagine that user interface, bring all of the data together, and particularly what was new about this application then was that we could give very good well-being recommendations to users. So this is really about managing your health and having a more healthy lifestyle. And so having all of the data in place and being able to come up with good recommendations based on that data is something that's really, compelling to those users. So by doing that modernization, we actually increased the registration rate for that app by 125%. So very, very significant increase in user uptake of that service, much more attractive, much more competitive and simpler to use. So, very, very transformative outcome there. Maybe to talk about another one then, we worked with an energy company and their web platform was built using older JavaScript technology that was a little bit hard to find skills for, didn't quite have the latest, most sophisticated features. So we modernized their web environment. We actually were able to save their 70% of their infrastructure costs just by moving to a more modern version. And I think what's interesting about this case is that was already quite modern technology, so maybe only kind of 5 to 10 years old, but still very significant benefits to be achieved by keeping things really up to date with the latest state-of-the-art systems.
Absolutely, thank you, and some very tangible benefits there. So looking ahead, what are some of the key trends and developments in legacy modernisation that businesses should be aware of in order to stay competitive and innovative? Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on this already quite a bit in the conversation. The big news in this space is generative AI. I think that's really for three reasons. So firstly, and again, you touched on this earlier, the big problem with legacy modernization has always been that it's very hard to just to even understand what a system does today, particularly if it's old, particularly if the people that designed it are no longer accessible. Documentation will be out of date, and we could be looking at millions of lines, even tens of millions of lines of code to understand. So generative AI is really revolutionizing that space where we can actually use the power of large language models to turn code into natural language and then summarize a lot of detailed code into something that's meaningful to a stakeholder or to development team. So that's really kind of reducing the risk level of modernization efforts, because I can actually understand what I have today, what it's doing, what are the dependencies, what are the impacts, and I can turn code into specifications I can use to build a modernized system. Second thing then is really the new development. So generative AI coding companions are getting better and better at producing code, helping to make that code not just faster to output, but also better quality. A big problem that we've had in the past with modernization has been this idea of effectively rebuilding the legacy system in a new environment, and that just doesn't really produce a lot of business impact because you're basically just doing the same thing over again. Whereas with generative AI, we can be a lot more ambitious about the level of restructuring and reimagination of those legacy applications and get to something that's really unlocking the potential of the technology more effectively.
Fantastic, thank you. And Yugal, same question to you. What are the key trends that you're seeing?
So I think one of the trends we have started to see in the recent time that has got accelerated is, generally enterprises were always very keen to learn from technology companies and digital natives. Some of the work which Mike also alluded to, the tech vendors are doing for their own technology and digital natives are doing for their own technology, is going to inspire enterprises a lot. Yes, there are some crazy numbers being thrown that, okay, an engagement, a project that might have taken 18 months is now taking 8 weeks, something like that, or 8 months, something like that, which will happen. But what this is going to create is a very interesting partnership between enterprise and their service partners and technology vendors as well. How all of them come together to meet that vision? That one of the reason modernization engagements have struggled or have faced challenges is the amount of time that it took and the risk that was involved. But then these new technologies, what Mike also spoke about, give them the ammunition where they can address this a lot. Now, the flip side to it is what I said earlier as well. Clients may think they can modernize everything, and they should. But then what they should modernize versus not, I think that business question will continue to be there. And I'm sure clients have their own frameworks and ROI models to assess. But the interesting thing is, yes, AI is going to change this, the way things run within software engineering in general, as well as in modernization. And it will be up to the clients, their service partners, and their technology partners to figure out what is the right path. And I think figuring out that right path will be a lot more important than what it is today.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of today's discussion on how to unlock future innovation by modernising today's legacy systems. I'd like to thank our speakers, Mike Turner from Cognizant, and Yugal Joshi from Everest Group. And thank you to our audience for listening. For more information on this topic, please visit the resources section on your screen. I'm Kathleen Hall. Goodbye.